Hello and welcome to Sensei Podcast. This is Manos Brilakis discussing with leaders in the field of CTO and complex PCI. Sensei means teacher or master in Japanese. The goal of the Sensei Podcast is to help you learn and improve in CTO and complex PCI so that you can become the best that you can be and offer your patients the best possible results. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sensei Podcast. It is a great pleasure to introduce our guest today, Dr. Taishi Hirai, who is currently in the Gifu Hospital in Japan. Taishi is a great CTO operator. He has been working on the field for many, many years. He has created a lot of research work, including the score for perforations, we will talk about later on, and a great friend. And again, Taishi, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much, Manos, for having me. Very excited.
So, Taishi, tell us a little bit about your story. How did you go into intervention? How did you go into complex intervention, CTO? How did this all come along?
Yes, so I was very interested in cardiology, especially interventional, even during the medical school years in Japan. And I kind of knew that I wanted to do, help the patients who are very sick, especially the MI patients. But I also knew that I wanted to train in US because, I had the opportunity during my 6th year of medical school to come to UPenn for the kind of like the rotation. And, I was very impressed by the training system, so I decided to come. And so that was, how I came to US and how I wanted to do interventional. The reason I went into complex intervention is I have a very specific episode, and that's with Aaron Grantham. So I was a general fellow in Chicago in 2016, and because the ACC was in Chicago, I went to ACC, and you know, um, ACC is a big meeting, so I wasn't 100% sure where I should be, but I decided to go to the fellows course. And so fellows course are really nice because a lot of top operators and top leaders in the field will give you a short presentation of what's going on. And during that session, he was presenting some retrograde case for CTO PCI, and I haven't seen that during my general fellowship. And I got really, really excited about what he presented. And so after the session, I went up to him and asked him, I want to be like you. I want to I want to help people like what you do, and how can I do that? And at the time, he told me, you're still a general fellow right now, so you can't jump to that field yet. You have to do interventional fellowship, but do you want to help me with some of the research that I'm doing? And that's how I started getting really interested in the field. And I worked on the open study at the time. And if you remember the paper with the subintimal plaque modification, um, that was my first paper that I really, worked on because, the clinical question was, why are these patients who had the failed procedure, even if they were told by the operator that it was a failed procedure, are their quality of life getting better? Are we missing something? And so that was the clinical question that we had. And so I got to work with him, and through him, I got to meet a lot of like really great operators across the US, and became like kind of like friends and mentors, and I got more and more into the field, and things that you can do to help the patients. And so that was how I got I got into the complex PCI field, and I'm very happy that I had that opportunity.
Yeah, congratulations! And looks like you took a lot of initiative, as you said, and you sought for the opportunity. I know it was a lot of work to get this. It didn't happen overnight, so a lot of work that went into it. So this was phenomenal. And then how did your clinical training go after you finished? You were in Chicago, if I remember correctly at the time.
Yes, so I did my interventional fellowship at University of Chicago, which is an excellent program with the mentorship of Sandeep Nathan, Atman Shah, Jonathan Paul, and John Blair at the time. Got to get the really like broad spectrum interventional cardiology training. And then after I finished that 1 year training, I got the opportunity to go to Mid America Heart, as a CTO chip fellow. And so I got to experience, probably like about 100 CTO PCIs through the 6 months that I was there. Get the, Impella cases, left main cases, really focusing on complex PCI and some of the clinical research work that we were working on at the time. Um, and so that was the training part that I got during 2018. That was 2018, and 2019 I started working at University of Missouri.
Wonderful. So you really done the full spectrum, trained. And the nice thing about training in different institutions, as you said, and very well developed institutions, as you say, University of Chicago, I mean, America, these are all great places. So you get different approaches to things. So you get to create your own style in doing the complex PCI. What did you find the most difficult thing to learn and to do for these years?
I think in terms of, CTO PCI, the most difficult thing is it's really different compared to when you have somebody who you can tell you where what you can do, or like mentor you or kind of guide you versus when you're on your own. And I think what I found it really most difficult when I started as an attending is, okay, where's my wire? Can I push this, or can I follow my microcatheter, or is it okay if I keep going, or am I out of the vessel? And you have to kind of figure that out. And I think you kind of get to know that as you do more and more cases. But I think in the beginning, that was the most difficult part, making sure that you're not kind of off and making like decision on the fly.
Wonderful. And then in terms of planning, and of course you have you're from Japan where things started in CTO intervention, so you have the DNA, I guess, what it takes for that. But when it comes to planning, what is your planning strategy? How do you plan this procedure? Everyone has their own kind of style of planning and
Yes.
doing.
Yeah, so my style is I usually look at the angiogram really carefully when I meet the patient in clinic. So that's the first, time you kind of think about the strategy. But then the night before, a couple of days before the procedure, I look at the angiogram again. And during that time, I come up with, okay, what's the difficulty? So I calculate the JCTO score. And then we can talk about this, but I calculate the open clean perforation score. And then I think about the strategy that I can use. And so I have the first strategy, second strategy, third, and if you have fourth and fifth, I'll go on and, write down the strategies. And based on that strategy, you decide on the guide size and so the access as well. And so I have the guide catheter, access, and then the difficult part, the perceived difficult part of the procedure. I write all those down and then send it to the staff, so everybody knows in the team. And then
Perfect.
so everybody knows that, okay, I'm in the third part of the procedure, and then if this doesn't go well, he's going to do the fourth and fifth. And then if that doesn't, go well, then, he's going to finish. So that, team has the same understanding.
Wonderful. And then, do you get nervous or stressed out during those procedures? Do you seem always very calm? Do you always keep calm? Do you ever get nervous during some of the complex procedures?
Yes, I do get nervous, especially when it's really calcified, or, if it's some, like you have to go through a high risk collateral. Um, but I think I try to get nervous way before the procedure so that I'm not nervous during the time of the procedure. And I think but as long as you feel like you prepared, to your best, I think that kind of calms you down. And everybody tells me that you're so calm even if you're having a complication. But I think inside I'm very freaked out. But then if you freak out in front of everybody, nothing good's gonna happen. So I try to keep that to myself and stay calm.
Wonderful. And then, in terms of um, doing the cases and um, working through the difficulties that are invariable over there, do you try to find a creative solution from every case? Are you trying to use the same patterns from before? How does your thinking, go now that you've done quite a lot of complex cases? How does that work for you?
A lot of it is like the kind of like algorithmic approach that I adopted from my mentors like Bill or and Jag and everybody Manos. So, you guys all have the algorithm when you have the common difficulty. So I try to go through that common algorithm quickly. But then if there's another solution that can potentially help that you can think of, for example, like use of star, for example, can be really helpful in some situations. And you know, there's opportunity we talk about like slash, for example, recently in our conference. But I think the similar concept was that if you do a star into a side branch, and if you try to snare that in the same same branch, then that's another way to do the reverse card. So something that's some one of the examples. But I kind of thought about that when I was having difficulty. And so that kind of creative thinking, I think, is especially important if you're doing a really complex one, for example, a post bypass patient. So try to be not to be dogmatic, try to be creative, and then do as much as you can, and find a solution. So.
Yeah, perfect. And I think for the people who are listening, many of whom may not have heard about the slash, you want to talk to them a little bit about snaring the retrograde guide wire. So they can tell them a little bit how you do it and how it has helped you so far. I know it's very exciting for many people.
Yeah, so I haven't done it myself. So this is based on, what everyone else has been talking. But basically, it's the most common scenario, I think, is when you're coming retrograde from the PDA and the wire keeps going into the PL, but you can't really get back into the, distal RCA. So one solution for that is to do kind of like the make a connection at the PL branch. So what you're going to do is you put the externalization wire into the PL branch, and then from the antegrade side, you're going to star into the PL branch. And if you have a good star, then you should have a same lumen distally in the PL. So you're going to bring in a snare, gooseneck snare from the antegrade side and snare the retrograde wire. And if you do that, and if you pull everything together backwards, then you're basically going to slice that subintimal kind of true membrane that you have, and so you're going to have a long dissection. And the cases at least that I've seen seems like we can have a good flow to the PDA but still preserve the flow to the PL branch.
Wonderful. And again, very cool and creative ways. And, the way things are moving forward is going to get better and better. But now, how about the complex cases when things don't go well or you have a failure or you develop a complication? This is obviously a stressful experience for everyone. Are there some tips and tricks you've learned about how to deal with these situations?
I think complications are really tough, and if you do a lot of complex cases, it comes at certain percentage, and so you have to be prepared for that. I think one important thing is to make sure that you have you know how to deal with the complications, and make sure that you don't make the second mistake when you have those complications. But in terms of the mental toll, I tend to get really depressed for like a couple of weeks if you have a big complication. And a lot of times I call my friends or my mentors. I've had some situations I had to call Dr. Grantham, at the middle of the night, kind of talk to him about the things that happened. And, but I tend to eventually you have to kind of think about what you can do next. And the only thing you can do at that point is to kind of learn from the experience, share that experience, and get better so that you can help the next patient. And so I tend to kind of think that way after a few weeks of keep feeling down, and then I tend to come back and start feeling the motivation again. So.
Wonderful. And you're right. I mean, the bottom line is whatever has happened, and nothing is going to change the past. But going forward, this can be very useful for some other people
Yep.
down the line.
Yes.
Now, going back to the learning journey, and um, are there any cases that have left an impression of you, good ones or bad ones? Some cases that have really you learned from or it left an impression on you?
Yeah, I think I have a case that comes up to mind that's a really bad one. First, and that one is the left main perforation that I had. That was I think a couple of years ago, and it was a patient who came with an N STEMI, had a I think it ended up being an LAD CTO, but at the time it almost looked like a clot. The circumflex, there was a huge clot sitting in the circumflex, and I was trying to open up the LAD, and there was a big perforation at the time. Um, I think I tried to, close with a covered stent, but I was worried that I was going to lose the LAD if you do that. And, you know, it was kind of middle of the night on a Sunday. And so I called my colleague and we put a small balloon up
No.
to seal the perforation. Um, and waited for the surgeon. By the time the surgeon came, he said, that's the place that you can't reach. And so at that point we started sealing, but eventually we couldn't rescue the patient. And so the learning point I had was, the management of left main perforation. So I really learned about, the sizing of the covered stent, and looked at the kind of like the inventory that we had in that, in our cast lab. Um, I also know, and I think I want to emphasize in the meetings that, this is the place, we have to be able to bail out every complication as an interventionalist. But the left main is especially one that, you have to bail out yourself. And, I think that was the learning, that I had and from that really bad case. Um, the good cases, I think I have a lot of good cases, but I think I would say, you know, some of the cases that I did with Dr. Grantham and at Mid America Heart, I think was very memorable. For example, like one of the case was Impella case with left main and then LAD circ bifurcation, and he did a triple kind of like kissing balloon. And that's the first time I saw the triple kissing. I thought that was very interesting. Um, I'm sure I have a lot of like successful cases, but I tend to forget about those. And so,
So
yeah,
we'll tend to focus on the
yeah,
bad ones, I guess, right? That's the
yes,
ones we remember the
yes,
most, and
yes, yes,
you're not
yeah,
the only one on that one.
yeah, yes.
Wonderful. Well, now when it comes to learning and teaching other people, you've had fellows at University of Missouri. Um, how do you how do you know, or do you know if the person you are teaching is going to be a great operator, if they're good learners? How do you assess that, and how do you adjust your teaching style based on how people learn?
No, I think that's a great point. And we started our interventional fellowship back in 2019 at University of Missouri. So I was lucky. I got to work with five excellent interventional fellows, and it's only we only have one fellow at a time, so we get to spend a lot of time with them. I think I think the really good fellows, or somebody who's going to be really good at intervention, really pay attention to small details. And then if you say something, or teach the tips, then they'll be able to do that, right away next time, and then not make the same mistake every time. Um, you also can tell by kind of like listening to their strategy. What are they thinking as a second step, third step, fourth step? And so I think that's true for if you yourself wants to be a good interventionalist. And so I kind of keep that in mind, when I'm the learner as well.
Perfect. So as you say, I mean, everyone can learn. It's just a matter of spending the time, and I think attention to detail is a critical factor, not only for PCI in general, but especially for CTO PCI, because end of the day, it's the small details that make the difference. I mean, a small miscalculation on where the wire is, as you know, can really end up really bad, and other way around. So being attentive to small things is very, very important. Um, in terms of teaching, what do you think is the hardest thing to teach? The mindset, the hand skills. What do you find the hardest to get to people to understand and to do?
Um, I think, I think the mindset is the hardest to teach. I think everyone knows. If you're really motivated, I think even if your hand skill is not perfect, I think you can cover that with your effort and your enthusiasm. But if your mindset is going to the wrong direction, I think that's going to be really, really tough to correct, I think. So, um, I don't know if you can teach the mindset, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. So,
Well, I mean, you never know. You never know, and I guess you can influence people, but it
yeah,
depends a lot on their personal background, on how they were brought up, how they approach things, not just in their work or intervention, but in general. Now, how about yourself? So again, you've been very, very busy, and you've done a lot of work both on the clinical but the research arena as well. And you published several great papers on this, including the
thank you.
perforation score. How did the idea for that score come up?
So the idea for the perforation was when we were in one of the meetings, I think it was a TCT or 2017 or 18, Jack talked to me right after he came down from the podium, and he said, okay, I think everyone was talking about perforation, during that time, and he said, okay, let's look into the perforation from open CTO score. This is very important, and figure something out. And so what I did at that time was because one of the unique things about OpenCTO, as you know, Manos, is that you have the all the angiograms for every patient. So I reviewed basically the 89 perforations that we had during the 1,000 patient population, and then try to come up with a pattern. What's going on in each perforation. And I think some of the main findings was that although we think the retrograde is more dangerous, a lot of times the perforation is actually happening when the you go antegrade and then you go retrograde and then you go back to antegrade. Those are the cases that you're having the perforation. We also understood that if you have a big perforation, that's bad. If you have a proximal perforation, that's bad. And then if you have an epicardial perforation, that's very bad. And so those were kind of the main findings of the paper. I think I'm very, when I look back, uh, I think it was a helpful paper for the community, and so I was very happy that I was able to contribute to the operators and to the patients, indirectly by kind of understanding about the perforation.
No, absolutely. And I think it does remain the most concerning complication for CTO, but also in general for PCI. I think this is one of the most dreadful moments when you have the contrast coming out fast. Um, but also, again, you've done the work on the last, you published other papers. So, how do you see research as part of your day to day? Is that something that you think regularly? What can I publish or what can I do? How do you go about it?
Yeah, I think clinical research is a very important part of my career, and I'm very lucky that I got the opportunity to work on the Open CTO study as well as Optimum study, and then most recently the STAR publication. I think, like I kind of mentioned, but if you have a technique and or you're showing in the conference and maybe talking about it, I think you should have a data behind, and I think you agree with that, Manos, and um, although it's been really hard to show, like for example, like medical therapy versus CTO PCI, that's a really difficult study to do. But you can do some, smaller studies, like for example, STAR was a 150 patient, and if I think if you're going to talk about like HDR, like TDADR, like new techniques that we saw at the CTO Plus, for example, somebody should kind of do a perspective study so that you can show what's going on, instead of kind of selecting the cases. You tend to select the case, right? If you're showing in conferences, but I think on the other hand, for example, the STAR was a consecutive enrollment for all the failed cases in the centers that we had. And so I think those type of studies are the ones that's going to help actually the clinical practice and the patients. And so I think that's going to be an important part of what we do. And I want to continue to do that as long as I have the opportunity.
No, absolutely. And first of all, congratulations. And your presentation at CTO Plus was phenomenal. And this is a question that comes up all the time about
Thank you.
when to come back after you have started and how to approach it. And for the people who didn't have a chance to watch your presentation or see your slides, maybe you want to summarize what you found in terms of whether you should come early or late after STAR.
Yeah, so the main clinical question that we had for the STAR study was what happens after STAR. What we found out back in early 2000, tens was that STAR procedure can open the CTO, but it comes with a risk of very high restenosis rate. And it was around when I was doing the CTO fellowship in 2018, 2017, that, our operators started to do the STAR, but we kind of found out that if you stage and bring the patient back, it looks like the vessel is going to heal up and you can, do more like a spot stenting instead of stenting everything. And also it seems like you have a higher chance of recanalization. And so we wanted to see, but what's going to happen to the vessel after those STAR procedure. And what we also didn't know at the time was when shall we bring the patient back? Shall we bring the patient back in a month or shall we bring the patient back in 3 months? And so that was a clinical question we had. And we 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 set the primary outcome as the uh, technical success we call, but the vessel patency rate at the time of the stage PCI. And then after you had the failed CTO PCI and did the STAR procedure, brought the patient back and randomized the timing to 5 to 7 weeks versus 12 to 14 weeks. So it's two groups analysis, 75 and 75. And
Mm-hmm.
what we found, what we presented at CTO Plus was that the early group was 83.6%, the late group was 71.4%, and the p-value was 0.08. So almost significant, but not quite. And then we also found that if you it seems like there's not much complications. If you do the STAR procedure, the only complications we saw so far was perforation that may or may not be related to the STAR itself because we counted all the perforation during the index CTO PCI. So that was the kind of the main study. What was also interesting, this is a secondary outcome, but the rate of TIMI 2 to 3 flow at the time of the stage PCI was higher in early group compared to the late group. It was actually 64% versus 44%. And so it does seem like the vessel close, higher rate of closure if you wait longer. And so that may be the reason why that the early group was almost statistically significant in terms of, the success rate.
Yeah, no, and that's very useful information because everyone debates, when should you bring them back? We do say typically 2 months, but it looks like maybe even earlier might be a better way to go. Of course, there's the balance between healing the dissection and coming too early sometimes. But I mean, this is very useful. Essentially, what you're saying is that based on the data, if you wait too long, then the vessel is going to close down again. So you don't want to wait 3 months; it's too long, and probably 1 to 2 months is probably the right time, which
Right.
I
I think
think fits.
exactly. So scientific standpoint, I think because the p-value was not significant, probably we can say any time between, obviously, but considering the small number of patients we enrolled, and then considering the p-value that we saw of 0.08, I think that your conclusion that you mentioned is very very reasonable. Kind of like yeah.
Wonderful. And again, doing all this study was a lot of work. How many sites? Because no, it's not easy to find those patients. So, how did you deal with how many sites, and how do you deal with all the stresses and the work to get the study completed?
Yeah, so this was a lot of work, starting from the study design, making sure that you get the funding and you have to have the protocol and then you have to talk to each site. You have to train the study nurses. A lot of communication throughout the years. We started the study back in 2020. And then we finally finished the enrollment in 2024. So if you think about the inclusion criteria, these are failed cases. And so if you want to enroll 150 failed cases, you probably have to have like 1,000, CTO PCI. So that's why it takes long and you have to be patient. But yes, it was a lot of work, kind of managing everything in your site as well as in other sites. But it was a very, very precious opportunity for me to learn how to design a perspective study. And so the learning was tremendous. And I'm so lucky that I had this opportunity to do this study. And I'm glad that we were able to complete it. I think it's one thing to start, it's another thing to complete. And so I was very happy when we enrolled the last patient last August. So.
No, congratulations.
But
And
thank
you
I
know,
have
as
to
you said,
yeah, yeah, I have to thank everybody. This is not my work. This is the work of the STAR study group and all the investigators. I want to mention, especially Aaron Grantham, Bill Lombardi, Rian Davis, and Mike Wyman, Bill Nicholson, and then all the study site coordinators and everybody else who helped. I think it's a work with everybody. Kate Carney was co-PI with me, and Lorenzo Azzolini has been really helping with the protocol and everything. And so I want to thank everybody for this. So.
again, you said it was a great effort, and it took a lot of people to work together. But again, congratulations on persisting and getting it done. And again, it's going to be tremendous having this data out there to help us guide these decisions.
Thank you.
So Daisy, how on a personal level, how do you keep yourself in good shape to do all these things, to the cases, run the research? How do you get all these things done?
Yeah, I try to I don't know if I'm in good shape, but I try to stay healthy. I used to be I used to run and I used to play soccer really competitively, but I have been lacking on that after I became like interventional fellow back in 2017. So I've been lacking a lot for a long time. So I recently started running again. And I'm actually going to do one marathon in a couple of weeks. So hopefully,
Oh,
yeah, I do okay. Yeah. So, but I try to stay active physically. So that's one thing. And I try to do my best to spend a lot of good time with my family, and that's gonna kind of relieve the stress of other things and a lot of like work-life balance, you would say. So.
wonderful. Yeah, that sounds perfect. And then, do you have a favorite book or a favorite movie?
Um, my favorite book is it's kind of like there's a book by Kazuo Inamori who was a CEO for Kyoto Ceramic, and then Konosuke Matsushita who was a CEO for Panasonic. But they write a lot of books about life lessons and some how you can be successful in terms of your life and in terms of your work and how you should be what's your mindset approaching like the day-to-day work. And so when I feel like a little bit down, I kind of read those books to get my motivation up. And some of the key points is that you have to be you know it has to be good for the society, like if you want to be successful as a company. So it's a similar thing obviously for as a doctors as well, and mindset I think is a similar. So I'm trying to keep that in mind. I think in terms of favorite movie, I tend to like the movie Back to the Future. That was kind of my favorite movie as I grew up, and so I think it'll be fun if I can, travel through the time and see my parents when they were young, see my, like grandkids, when they're in youth, and so I think there's a lot of dream to that kind of opportunity. So.
Yeah, it would be great to do that. Then we can know what the case is going to go. That would be
That's
great.
right. It might be scary, actually. That might be scary, yeah.
No, this sounds
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
And then, what are you most proud of? Again, you've done many, many things. What are you most proud of so far?
So far I'm proud of the CTO program that I built at University of Missouri with a lot of my colleagues there and my team members and uh, a clinical staff. I think I'm very proud of that. I think we did a lot of good things together. It wasn't without the help of my mentors. I have to mention actually when I started the CTO program, Dr. Grantham came, Dr. Tony Spady came, Dr. Tony DiMartini came, and they were all willing to help. To build the program together, and then my colleagues at University of Missouri, especially Arun Kumar, Chirag Bavishi, Raj Karparthi, Albert Chan, these guys, are my colleagues, and we got to do it together. So.
No, it's amazing. And just curious, how many hours do you sleep every night?
I sleep about in good days I sleep 7 hours, and then if I'm busy I sleep about 5 hours, I would say.
All right. So keeping the midnight oil burning, it looks like. So
Yes.
this is keeping busy.
Yes.
And then, Tacy, what is your plan for the future? What are your goals going forward?
So I think my goals is I'm kind of re at the phase of kind of reassessing what are my goals going to be, but I do want to keep working on, my skills as a CTO operator and try to get better. But I think when I think about kind of my background, I come from Japan, and then I have friends in both sides of the Pacific Ocean, so I feel like I have to do something about that, and I think that's one thing I'm thinking about. It's vague, but I don't know what that's gonna be yet. But I want to keep working on my skills, and I want to keep working on the clinical research part. Try to get better, and try to be helpful to the community. So
Well, I think you already done tremendous work, and there is much more to come. And as you say, it's good to bridge the gap. Sometimes communication can be challenging due to language barriers, I think, with our Japanese colleagues. So I think you can really have a tremendous impact over there and facilitate the interaction because I think we're still learning a lot, 3D, as you say, 3D wiring and ADR. I mean, there's a lot of things that are still happening, manipulation of equipment. And I think also the patience is one of the things that we can all learn a lot from our Japanese colleagues.
yeah, that's
Now,
right. Patience.
yes, I think U.S. operators might be a little less patient than
Yeah.
the Japanese operator, at least I've observed. So being able
Yeah.
to be able to slow down and think, I think that's a it's a great skill to have and very very powerful as well.
Yeah. I think the other part Japanese operators can get, on the other hand, might be the efficiency. So I think,
Can go both
I think,
ways, I
yeah,
guess,
both
right?
ways.
You
That's,
never
that's
know.
right. That's right. That's right. So,
There you go.
yeah. Yeah.
So again, you've done amazing work, and essentially you were very proactive, and develop yourself as an operator and as a researcher as well. If you had to give some advice to younger colleagues who are starting their career, they're in cardiology or intervention, and they're considering a career in complex and CTO PCI, what would you recommend to them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think if you have passion for complex PC, I think it's a great field, to be honest. I like it. And I love it when the patient comes back to clinic, after you've done the work. And so that's my favorite part of the field that I work in. I love it that every case is really different, and you have to find a solution. You have to keep getting better. But if you get better, you can actually help more people. And so that's the part I really like about the field. And so if you're interested, I would say, you know, I would encourage to keep going, and and keep that passion. You'll find a way. You'll find a way if you have the passion, I think. So that would be my advice.
Wonderful. So keep the passion going. Reach out to people like you did. You reached out and then collaborate with people, and good
That's right.
things, good
That's
things
right.
will come.
That's right.
Wonderful. Well, again, Taisi, thank you so much again. It's been wonderful talking to you. Congrats on everything you've accomplished so far. Look forward to seeing the STAR trial paper soon. And again, excited to keep on working with you.
Absolutely, Manos. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Sensei podcast.